to Transit Talk, a show brought to you by the DCTA, Denton County Transportation Authority, that highlights information about our public transportation. After our show, Discover Denton, we will bring you Transit Talk. So after you hear about the things you can do in Denton, you can hear about how you can get there. This week, we have Christina Brevard, Marketing and Communications Manager for the DCTA, as well as Jim Klein, President of the DCTA, back for the third week, talking about new legislation that involves DCTA. So here is Transit Talk.
I'm Christina Brevard with the Denton County Transportation Authority, and today I'm joined by Jim Klein. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Christina. Happy to be here.
On August 26th, we have our biannual service changes, and there are a lot of different things coming up that we want to make sure that our passengers are aware of that might affect their daily commute via bus or train. We have some great improvements. I think every time we do service changes, we're trying to improve our services. But I'd like to talk a little bit about what service changes we do have coming up and what our passengers can expect to see in August.
I've got a little bit of background as we go into that. At DCTA, we do schedule revisions twice a year. We do them in August and January, and we do it that way for a couple of reasons. One is at the beginning of the two big semesters, and so much of our ridership is driven by the universities in Denton. It also is timing when our drivers do the rescheduling of their trips, and it times very well to provide some predictability for our riders, that when we don't want to be having changes all the time. We want to make sure it's at a predictable time and it's regular so that we can also be as efficient as we can be with our scheduled publications and our Go Guides and our website and everything, so we can make sure that that's very reasonable and cost efficient for our agency to do. Now, when we look at changes, we certainly do a lot of staff analysis on how that's going to happen and what we want to achieve. We also look, though, and one of the biggest things that we take into account is input from the public. And we go to our board in February when we talk about at our board retreat, where we do our planning retreat for the year, and we say, this is kind of the things we're thinking about. And then we take those ideas and take them to the public. And on the 11th of April and on the 20th of April, we took that to public meetings in Highland Village, Louisville, and Denton. We tried new things all the time. One of the things we did is a Twitter open house, and we also did two of the meetings on a Saturday so that we could not have a limitation to people that had regular jobs and can't make it to the meetings for family commitments and things like that.
Right, and one of the other things we did new this time was we did an open house format in order to provide a better avenue for our passengers and community members to speak one-on-one with DCTA staff. And I think that kind of format is a lot less intimidating than the typical public meeting format where it's the death by PowerPoint and the rows of chairs for the attendees. So I think that the format we used this past time worked really well.
Well, and I think to add to that, it made it much more comfortable. A lot of people aren't comfortable going up in front of a microphone and having to make it as a public presentation. We want to make it to where people are comfortable about giving us their input, and so we hope to get more and more as we go forward. So we'll continue to try different things to make that work. And the result of that, not only of the staff analysis and the public input, was a couple of things. And we've got some ideas that we're looking at changing in August and some ideas that may carry forward into January as we look into the future. Probably the biggest thing we're trying to work through right now is how to make our system a little bit more efficient in terms of the bus-to-train and bus-to-bus transfers. We want to make sure that as we catch more people with the bus and the train, so there's a shorter waiting period, and so the buses sync up better together.
Right, yeah, I know our passengers would really like to see that happen.
We're also looking at adding some service in Louisville, extending Route 21 to go into Waters Ridge. And the reason why is we have over 30 businesses and 1,500 employees. So the more we can bring folks to those jobs that can be served by, that we're really in a positive way trying to impact that. A couple other small things is that we'll be working on Route 2 in Denton. One of the things we've seen is that we're held up sometimes by going twice by the hospital. So what we'll do now is if a passenger requests it, we'll certainly go back by the hospital after the stop at Med Park. And after that, though, we'll go ahead and bypass that so we can make the route run more efficiently. Route 2 is one of our busiest, one of our longest routes and the hardest to keep on time. And so we're really trying to improve that on-time performance. A couple of things on the train. We did some changes this last year that accommodated to do a better job of serving the students that have 8 p.m. classes. And so we exchanged our bus and train to be able to allow those students to get to the downtown Denton Transit Center in time to catch the last southbound train, which we think is certainly something that we're going to watch and continue to see how that builds. And if there's a market in the future for those students with 9 o'clock classes, that's something in the future we want to think about. But something that we do want to implement on the A train with a schedule change in August is that we've had our latest night runs on the weekends have been very low ridership. We'll only have 2 and 3 people on the train, which is very difficult to run that expensive of a service for just a couple of folks. And we've seen a big demand for more service early in the morning on Saturday. And so we're going to shift around some of our assets a little bit and make sure that we can service that need on Saturday morning by taking the funding that we have for a couple of the later trips and transfer it to where we could run an 8:15 southbound train out of the downtown Denton Transit Center.
Yeah, and those earlier trips on Saturday mornings will provide a great opportunity for individuals to come into Denton for like the Arts and Jazz Festival. They can come and stay all day, and they get here earlier. It also allows our Denton community members to get down to Dallas to get to the zoo or an event at Victory Park or anything in Dallas that they might want to get to and spend all day at. I know that that's one of the things we've heard from passengers is, yes, they do want earlier trips on Saturday morning. And I think that this will be a great change, and we'll have to watch to see how well it's received by our passengers and the community members.
And we hope that as we continue to build that, getting the service to serve the most people that we possibly can and service both our events in our communities and those folks in our communities who want to go south. A couple of things we're thinking about for January. We're looking at adding a bus in Louisville and adding a bus in Denton that could, again, work to chip away at some of those longer headways or the times between buses so that we can, again, get better ridership and make the customer experience better.
Great. Yeah, we are definitely focusing on the passenger experience. And in addition to these service changes in August, we also have some technology things that are coming up. So be on the lookout for our GoPass mobile ticketing and also our Where's My Ride technology. You can find more information about that on dcta.net, and we'll be talking to you more about that in the future as well. Well, Jim, I appreciate you coming in today and talking about the August service changes.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it.
And that's all we have for today's Transit Talk. This is Christina Brevard with the ins and outs of public transportation within your community.
And there you have it, the latest episode of Transit Talk, brought to you by the DCTA. A big thanks to Christina Brevard and Jim Klein. An extra big thanks to Gravity Feed for providing the music. I'm Jake Laughlin, your host. Join us next week on Transit Talk, where we will be talking more transit. And in the meantime, go explore Denton.